In the heart of Zimbabwe, near the iconic Victoria Falls, a $36 million natural gas project is entering a new era, powered by tokenization.
Boris Pikhalov,
Chief Analyst and Head of Client Delivery at Stobox.
Thabani Hove, Chief Executive Officer at Ravetch Investments.
Paul Tromp, Technical Director at Discovery Investments.
What we are trying to do now is to try and bring it down to the level of anybody who wants to invest in the oil and gas industry.
It's over 6 trillion cubic feet of gas.
I believe that tokenization is coming in at the most opportune time. And it's not just a Zimbabwean project, it's a project for the whole region. That's how much gas we have. So for us, tokenization is a game changer.
Dear viewers, welcome to Stobox Interviews, a video series where we bring industry leaders pushing the boundaries of innovation in finance. My today's guests are Thabani Hove and Paul Tromp, CEO and Technical Director of Discovery Investments, respectively, in Ravetch Investments. Their team is tokenizing one of the world's largest natural gas deposits in Zimbabwe, which is one of the probably most exciting applications of tokenization I've seen so far, and definitely one of the most ambitious ones. And I'm looking forward to discussing this today. Okay, and let's dive right in. Thabani, Paul, please tell me about your business background.
Okay, so I've been in business for more than 30 years now, and for the past 24 years, I've been in the mining sector. And in particular, for the past 15 years, in the last 15 years, I ventured into exploration of coal-bed methane together with Paul Tromp. He did a lot of good work to convince me to invest in coal-bed methane. And so basically, to tokenize, we have had to register a company in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And the company is focused mainly on clean and sustainable energy in Southern Africa, in countries like Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, South Africa, Tanzania. And our main focus right now is a project in Zimbabwe, which to us is a world-class project and is a very compelling project. So that will be the first project. And thereafter, we're going to move to other projects within the region.
Okay, thank you for a presentation. And Paul, it would be great to hear a few words about your background.
Yes, I'm a certified petroleum geologist with the AAPG. My career began in the early 1980s, exploring for oil and gas in the Rocky Mountains for 6 years, including an introduction to coal-bed methane, which was in its younger days back then. In 1987, I became a lecturer in the geology department at the University of Zimbabwe, which I did for 5 years before getting back into oil and gas as a CBM consultant in Southern Africa and North America, particularly in the Powder River Basin of Wyoming and Montana states. During that time, I started gas exploration projects in Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, and South Africa. Zimbabwe and South Africa have been the only successful ones, particularly Zimbabwe.
Mm-hmm. I like your very measured delivery, typical for a deeply technical person. Thabani mentioned before we started the interview that Paul is the technical brains behind the entire operation. Okay, thank you for telling me about yourself, and Thabani for starting to speak about the project. And probably the topic question everybody is most excited about and most interested in is the terms. What are the terms you offer investors and the projected returns, and as well as exit strategies?
Okay, our project for the first phase, we want to raise $35 million as a convertible debt, and the interest rate on that is 12.5% per annum, and the conversion to equity, there will be a discount, a 70% discount from debt to equity. And the excitement about investing in phase one is that due to the large volume of the gas in place, we believe and we anticipate that the valuation, the amount of gas that we have within the next 24 months it would be in the tune of about $7 billion. So within a short space of time, the early movers, those who invest early, there's a very good upside within the next 24 months.
Okay, so basically investors invest 35 million, they get an interest on that, and then they get almost doubled in equity in the overall operation that is worth 7 billion.
Precisely, yes.
Okay, that's pretty sweet. And tell me more about the actual project you're tokenizing, about this gas field you mentioned, and how did you even get involved in it?
Well, I mean, being in the gas field, it's very usually most gas fields that are out there, the capex is very, very high. It's very expensive. So what we are trying to do now is to try and bring it down to the level of anybody who wants to invest in the oil and gas industry, because of the nature of the industry itself. Being a very capital intensive, most the traditional bankers tend to shy away from emerging markets. So for us, tokenization is a game changer for two simple reasons. In that it gives the small investors an opportunity to participate in the early stage investment of an oil and gas project with high returns as the project develops. And the second point is that it gives global access to investors, big or small. That's the excitement about tokenization.
It's genuinely a shame that traditional bankers aren't open to funding these kinds of projects in developing markets, largely because there is so much untapped economic potential and growth potential out there. But on the other hand, I kind of glad this inefficiency exists, because it's open opportunity for players like Stobox to come in and make some money out of actually bridging this gap. And I assume this is how you arrived at the idea of tokenization. You tried to get traditional finance originally, understood that it doesn't work, and then was looking for alternatives.
Yes. I mean, we decided to pursue tokenization. I mean, basically there are four other simple reasons, and that it makes investment faster, affordable, it's more transparent, and is easily accessible. And the other point is that the old system is outdated, and we now have a new digital model. Blockchain technology, it records what it records is permanent. So as a result, there's a lot of transparency and accountability. And the last point is that it gives investors the flexibility to exit whenever they wish at the press of a button. That's the beauty of tokenization.
Definitely. We are very excited about it, and that's one of the reasons why Stobox and they are in this business. But what tokenization also needs is obviously good assets, and that's why we like these kinds of opportunities that are genuinely attractive to investors. Because obviously, if you tokenize garbage, what you get is tokenized garbage, and this is not what we want to do. What industry needs is high quality opportunities that are underlooked by traditional assets. And on that note, it would be cool to hear, both for myself and for investors, more in-depth details about the investment itself. How large is the gas fields? What are actually the deposits? At which stage you are in terms of exploration? I believe everyone is dying to find out more.
I guess Paul can respond to that.
Okay, people often ask me about how I got involved in the project. And while I was a lecturer at the University of Zimbabwe, I noted the extreme thickness of coal and coaly mudstone in Zimbabwe, and that motivated me to chase the gas potential there and in the neighboring countries. In the late 1990s, the late James Logan and I formed a Zimbabwe CBM company, which was initially funded by Union Carbide Corporation. What we found dwarfs the gas potential of the neighboring countries because this is a world-class deposit. One of the problems with getting funding for a project like this is you're really either dealing with people that know gas and appreciate gas investments, but know nothing about Zimbabwe, or people that are comfortable with investments in Zimbabwe, but know nothing about gas. Gas is a new thing. Self-produced gas in Zimbabwe is a new thing. And nobody wants to be first, but I promise you everyone's going to want to be second.
That's why the first mover advantage exists. That's cool. And what Thabani mentioned initially, when speaking about the background, I believe you are not just going to extract the gas itself. You're also you are going to generally act as an energy provider in West Africa from a business model perspective, as I understand.
Yes, there is an opportunity. The license is crossed by both high voltage and medium voltage power lines, both of which have unused capacity. So the offtake for that is easy because of the large size, over 1,000 square kilometers. That will support thousands of gas wells over decades. And that's certainly enough. There's enough gas to justify the eventual construction of pipelines, both within Zimbabwe and the region. The Powder River Basin, when it began in the late 1990s as a coal bed basin, had no gas pipelines to offtake the gas. And so all that had to be developed. And in the course of about 10 years' time, over 30,000 coal bed methane wells were drilled in the Powder River Basin. So we're looking to replicate that for Zimbabwe.
Oh, that's an ambitious vision, and I hope that with our assistance and participation from investors, some of whom might be watching this video, this will come to pass. I'm wondering how does the market overall look like for CBM, natural gas, and energy as well? There is multiple emerging trends. On one hand, we have renewable transformations, we have the rapid industrialization and electrification in Africa and the rest of the world. So I'm wondering, how do you see your work playing into these trends?
Well, the international demand for gas is growing. And I mean, it's all come to play in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. Gas is often part of the equation, and it's not only the safest and cleanest of the hydrocarbons, but it provides a guaranteed backup for the fluctuations that you find in renewable energy. Any wind and or solar project that doesn't have gas to back it up is just bound to fail without subsidies, because they need something reliable. Gas turbines can be switched on in a matter of minutes, as opposed to coal-fired, which literally can take the better part of a day. And hydroelectric is pretty well tapped out even in Africa. So gas offers actually underpinning support for the renewables. And Africa, I don't know what the current figure is for Zimbabwe, but something on the order of only 20% of Zimbabweans have access to electricity. And so this could also be a major change, not just to stop the power cuts, which have been burdening the region for over a decade now, but also to provide power to new power users across the region.
In fact, Paul, I can add to that. The problem is actually the whole of Africa. Only 32% of the population has access to electricity. So there's such a huge demand for electricity. And, and this project comes in at the most perfect and opportune time, in my view.
Definitely. There is large need for electrification and renewable energy, but if we cannot supplement it with something like natural gas, this is doomed to fail. And if we want to survive, then we are all very interested in renewable transition to being successful. So this is a part of this global movement. And you mentioned, Paul, initially that there have been similar projects in other countries, and you are not just doing something from scratch, greenfield, but actually replicating success of projects that will already have been done in other parts of the world.
Yes, it might sound incredible that thousands of wells can be drilled within a decade, but it has been done, and are relative to most other types of oil and gas, these wells are relatively shallow. So far, we've not gone below 800 meters depth, and the basin itself is probably maximum depth to coal of about 1,200 meters. So the wells are simple, shallow, and we don't require fracking because it's a rift valley and has never been laterally compressed. So we've achieved commercial rates, early days commercial rates, with very short production testing without any fracking.
Okay, and I assume this also means that the capex that is required per well is lower because of their because the basin is more shallow.
Yes.
And I assume, and I'm quite ignorant in the energy industry, but I assume that because you don't need to utilize fracking, also the environmental impact is smaller overall.
Yeah, so one of the byproducts of coal bed methane is water production. Dewatering allows depressurization of the coals and coaly mudstones, and the water can be treated and is actually will be a byproduct in a very drought-prone area.
Okay, so it has also positive environmental externalities.
Yes.
Yes, and also it is the water, like Paul has just said, the area where the project is a very dry area, and this water will be used for irrigation for the locals, for their agriculture projects. It comes in very handy for that, because the people out there, they need a lot of water, and this project will provide them with that. So it's a win-win for both us as investors and the locals who live there. We will pump up the water. For us to get the gas, we have to pump the water out, and the water will then treat it and supply it to the locals for their agriculture and livestock, and we will have access to the gas.
I love this. I've been thinking a lot lately about tokenization, about being careful so that tokenization doesn't replicate the typical dynamics of colonialism, and you have people from US, from Europe investing in Africa, taking over local assets and harming local communities with their productions. But this one is different. Here we have projects that's led by representatives of Zimbabwe who understand local market, and a significant part of value will be captured locally. And importantly, the project is environmentally beneficial for stimulating local economy rather than harming this. So I believe this is the very good example of what is the right way to do tokenization, so that we don't replicate the harmful dynamics of the past, but actually lead to more equitable development in different regions.
Precisely.
And on that, I assume that many investors, and from my discussions as well, have quite many misconceptions about Zimbabwe, as it's an emerging market and didn't receive that much FDI, especially from private investors so far. So I'm curious to hear what are some of the most common myths that you'd like to dispel.
Would you like me to address that, Thabani, as a non-Zimbabwean?
Yes, please. You go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, the myth is that Zimbabwe has expropriated privately owned businesses. That is not true. Expropriation was limited to land, and consequently or subsequently, a compensation structure for former landholders has been put in place and agreed to by all the parties. It's called the Global Compensation Deed, in terms of which $3.5 billion shall be paid as compensation. The land legacy issue has now been amicably resolved. Furthermore, gold, coal, and other minerals have continued to be mined and sold by private companies since Zimbabwean independence, and Discovery Investments secured the first production license for gas in the country.
Okay, this is quite interesting. I know Zimbabwe has a pretty rich history with related to property rights disputes, and it's good to hear that all of that is actually history, and investors can be certain that their investment is significantly more secure because of these claims have been resolved. I'm wondering, what is your overall assessment of the political risk related to investing in Zimbabwe? To which extent the property rights of investors are protected given changes in government, political stability, and other risks of that kind?
Well, because Zimbabwe relies so much upon the mining industry, whether it's coal, gold, etc., they have not tampered with the security of investment in those quarters. And what had been a target in the past is farmland. So we're certainly not in the category of interested parties, regardless of what the political scene is. They're not going to kill the goose that lays the golden egg, so to speak.
Okay, that makes total sense.
You might have more to add. You still live
Yes,
there?
I mean, there's no record of any foreign investor who has lost any of their assets in terms of business in the mining sector. And Paul has been a shareholder for many, many years, and I don't think he has felt any fear of losing his business interest for political reasons. He's a pure example and a witness to that.
Yeah, I also feel like in emerging markets, the political risk is kind of overblown. Obviously, there are regions that are unstable. There is the higher the courts might be somewhat less developed, but overall, it is in the best interest of these countries in general, but also specifically the leaders of emerging market countries to keep some of the key industries developing fast and attract international investments. And especially now in the 21st century, especially with the expected reduction in foreign aid due to the political headwinds from the US. So it makes sense that emerging markets actually have an incentive to be investor friendly. Speaking about risks, what would you say, and it's probably a question to Paul, are the technical risks to investors? How would you, let's say we complete the offering, you raise 35 million. What is the likelihood that the technology that you use for drilling either breaks down, or there are other reasons, or you cannot actually drill the gas from the land? So how mature is everything technology-wise?
Well, there is now a 40-year plus history of coal bed methane development in other parts of the world. It started in the US, spread to Canada, Australia, China, Ukraine, Russia. And so there's a lot of established techniques, and each basin's a little bit different. But one of the challenges for this project and anything in Southern Africa onshore is there's a lack of petroleum industry services. But for a project this size, it can be readily imported from proven sources, North America, Australia, and there are trillions of cubic feet of gas in very thick beds of coal and coaly mudstone, which has been independently certified. We've already proven early days commercial flow rates, something not common in most coal bed methane projects where commercial rates can take months of dewatering to attain. And of course, our permeability, the inherent permeability of the coals being in a Rift Valley setting does not require controversial and expensive fracking technology.
I think on that note, Paul, it's important that we highlight the differences in terms of the gas in place between our gas field and the established gas fields out there in the world, because that will have an effect on the risk factor.
Yes, our third-party proven gas resource is over 6 trillion cubic feet of gas. Subsequent drilling has potentially tripled that figure. Exploration testing to date has found areas that have 3 times the gas per area of the best coal bed methane projects in the world, like the San Juan Basin in New Mexico and Colorado. Because the project being in a Rift Valley, fracking is not required. The drilling depths are very shallow. And so if it worked in other places with a third or less of the gas in place, surely it will work well in Zimbabwe. And that's why we refer to it as a world-class deposit. It truly is.
Okay, that's good to hear. From my experience with this kind of venture investments, typically investors are willing to take market risk, but hesitant about technology risk. And basically what I'm hearing in this case, there is limited to no technology risk because it's highly mature. So mostly this is just standard operating risk, force major risk, and market risk, which is something that investors are typically more open to accepting. So that's definitely a win. I'm wondering, closing the topic of risk, and that's probably a question to you, Thabani. How would you assess the overall financial risk of the project, and how do you plan to mitigate it?
Yeah. So basically, what we have done, we want to give comfort to our investors. So we have brought in Grant Thornton. Grant Thornton are going to be involved in the management, in the financial management of the project. They're going to be producing audit reports for all the investors, so that on a regular basis they know what is happening, and the financial management will be up to the world standards. So we want Grant Thornton. We want all our investors to sleep well at night, to be comfortable that on the finance side everything is well taken care of.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense as far as a reduction in at least perceived risk, to provide to use a trusted third party to provide an oversight and act on behalf of investors to ensure their interest.
Precisely.
Cool. And of the risks, I'm pretty clear, and I believe this is a good place to provide your summary on why would you say Ravetch Investments is a amazing, exciting project to invest in, and how does your pitch look like for investors?
It's not every day that you get an oil and gas project. It's not every day that you get an opportunity to invest in an early stage oil and gas project, because the oil and gas industry, as like I said earlier on, it requires a lot of capital. Early stage investments, there's always good scope. There's always great potential for an upside. From right from the outset, there's always there's always an upside because of the amount of gas that we have in this particular project. We believe that the early investors, they will have a serious upside, and the beauty about it all is that the work that we have done, we have proven that we can produce the gas commercially. And now we are saying, if you've got some money to invest, this is the time to invest, because you will be able to get a huge upside, and the returns are fantastic. And we've decided to go the tokenization route, because this then gives you and I, a simple man on the street, an opportunity to take part in this fantastic journey that we are embarking on. And we believe that we have the product that will bring good returns to all our investors. We have an ecosystem that will ensure that there's accountability. We have an ecosystem that will ensure that whatever transaction is done timeously and it's affordable. And we would like to, in fact, I would say, to recommend that for anyone who wants to get involved in an oil and gas industry, this is the type of a project that they want to get involved in.
This is really well said. Throughout the interview, I'm looking for small sound bites, like pieces 5 to 15 seconds that I can put in the beginning, and this I can literally take this one, this full answer, and put it as a cold open. This was really good. Okay, and closing the interview, my last question that I love to ask all the time, because
Boris, sorry, can I interrupt? I just wanted to add some things to what Thabani said from sort of a high-level view of the project. The hard and risky part has already been done. The gas has been found in huge quantities. Simply put, the foundation of this gas project has been built with the discovery of gas. Now there's an opportunity to join from the ground floor. The big risk is always finding gas. That risk has been taken out of the equation.
Okay, so when I've been speaking about the Ravetch Investments with some of the financiers, the misconception they had is that this is a pre-feasibility exploration stage project. But what you're saying, this is definitely not the case, because the exploration has been done, the drilling has been done, you have proven commercial feasibility, and this is now just about going and doing the stuff, setting up the operation and making money.
Precisely. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And now, Thabani or Paul, if you want to chime in, going back to the question on the future of tokenization industry.
I know that's what excites you, Boris. Well, I believe, we believe that tokenization is the modern way of raising capital. The old traditional ways of banking are gone. I believe that tokenization is coming in at the most opportune time. And the beauty about it all is that you can raise funds globally. It's not limited to any specific jurisdiction. It's a global, it's access to the global market. And the final point is that tokenization has the potential to unlock trillions of dollars within the next few years. It's not decades, but within the next few years, trillions of dollars will be invested in the tokenization.
And good. I'm glad to hear you are so optimistic about it. Thabani, Paul.
One comment I have about the drying up of foreign aid. Show me where foreign aid has done lasting good anywhere in the world versus business investment. Foreign directed investment, such as we're looking for, is what can make a place like Zimbabwe self-supporting, self-sustaining, and the use of gas, even as transport fuel in a place with no oil deposits of its own, can make a big difference. There is a lorry pipeline, if you will, running from the Zambia copper belt down into South Africa. All those fleets of trucks could be using liquid natural gas from Zimbabwe, which is halfway the distance, to run the lorry loads. Back when Kariba Dam first went in the 1960s, power was cheap. And Sable Chemical, which produced a fertilizer, ammonia fertilizer, had cheap power from the Kariba Dam and actually used electrolysis to make ammonia and then fertilizers and explosives. They haven't done that for a long time because power is in short supply and it's no longer cheap. And one of the main inputs for fertilizer globally is natural gas. And so Zimbabwe, instead of importing all of its fertilizer base from South Africa, which is also doing and importing it on its own, could be producing its own fertilizer for the farming industry.
This is a really insightful comment, and I strongly agree with this approach of building self-reliance and internal strong industries with positive spillovers in water supply, in fertilizer supply, rather than continuously relying on imports, on foreign aid. This is definitely what's needed to make Zimbabwe a stronger, more resilient country in the face of global crisis, supply shocks, and everything else that the world is facing today.
Yeah, and to add on to what Paul has just said, we have to bear in mind that 70% of the African populations, they live on the land. They live on agriculture. And the basic requirements for any successful agricultural project is water and fertilizer. And that is what this project brings. And it's not just a Zimbabwean project, it's a project for the whole region. That's how much gas we have. So this is so fundamental to livelihood, to people's livelihoods within the region, providing water and providing fertilizers without even going to the other petrochemicals that could also benefit the locals. But the two fundamental raw materials that are needed for any success in agriculture is your water and your fertilizers.
Thabani, Paul, thank you so much for coming today to us as a guest on this interview. This has been a fascinating conversation. I loved hearing your perspectives and seeing how tokenization can not just tokenize, make our property more expensive in London again, but to actually do lasting good for the development of emerging economies. And I really hope that you will be successful in achieving this dream. Thank you again for joining this interview and for trusting Stobox as your tokenization partner.
Thank you very much for your support. We appreciate it. We are hopeful that soon we'll be celebrating the successes of Stobox.